Welcome to the JCPS training on the MTSS Teacher Clarity Toolkit with a focus on the high yield practice explicit teaching strategies. I'm April Bemker, MTSS Engagement Resource Teacher with Accelerated Improvement Schools, or AIS, working with middle and high schools.
Hi, I'm Dominique Dobson-Penn, the MTSS Engagement Resource Teacher with AIS schools, and I work with elementary. Please take a moment to write down or type the case-sensitive bit.ly into your web browser. This will allow you to access this slide deck and all the links for future reference. Here are the 6 components that make up the MTSS department, multi-tiered systems of support. MTSS is a data-driven support system which focuses on overall student improvement that is sustainable. Let me start by showing you the components of our department, multi-tiered systems of support known as MTSS. This concept map shows a visual of the departments within MTSS. The MTSS Academic Department, managed by Donna Lawson, provides teachers with Tier 2 and Tier 3 intervention and academic support. The MTSS Behavior Department supports schools in implementing school-wide behavior systems and frameworks, including PBIS and restorative practice. Sandra Hensel is their coordinator. Dr. Naomi Brahim directs the MTSS Re-Engagement Department, which supports students who are transitioning back to their home schools from Minor Daniels Academy and Breckenridge Metropolitan. Dr. Naomi Brahim is also the director of our department, MTSS Engagement. The goal of our department is to increase student achievement by equipping teachers with high-yield pedagogical practices to maximize student engagement. The point of contact for each department is located and linked in the concept map. 6 MTSS toolkits were created to provide resources for Tier 1 instructional practices to increase student engagement and reduce student behaviors. Here are the 6 MTSS toolkits. By clicking the toolkit image, you will access the MTSS department webpage and each toolkit. When we think about explicit teaching strategies, we are referring to teacher clarity. Teacher clarity focuses on where students are going in their learning and how they are progressing and where they will go next. A teacher demonstrates success of this high-yield instructional practice by delivering instruction utilizing explicit teaching strategies that support students in actively receiving and accurately interpreting information. Explicit teaching strategies describe the clear ways the teacher can support students in clearly receiving, interpreting, and understanding content, including chunking, differentiating, modeling, and pacing. John Hattie lists explicit teaching strategies as a high-yield instructional practice with an effect size of 0.57. In his research, he also uses the terms explicit instruction and explicit lesson in defining and describing explicit teaching strategies. We will use the term explicit teaching strategies in our toolkit and in this presentation to match Hattie's list of impacts on student achievement. You may see these 3 terms used interchangeably in various forms of research. Today, we will develop a deeper understanding of explicit teaching strategies and how to implement them in everyday instruction. Here are the components of a lesson utilizing explicit teaching strategies. The lesson design addresses many of the instructional elements and principles associated with student achievement. In the opening of the lesson, the teacher will need to gain students' attention. If a lesson starts when students are not paying attention, they may miss critical information related to learning. Instructional time will be wasted and ends with student errors. You need to repeat this process throughout the lesson when students leave your attention to respond to learning. The preview links to communicating the learning intentions and success criteria to the students. Knowing whether your students have these prerequisite skills is critical to the instructional process. When reviewing critical prerequisite skills, it is not reteaching, not asking the students if they remember how to perform the skill, not asking one or two students to come to the board and solve a problem. In the body of the lesson, these are used to show the students what they are expected to learn, give them opportunities that promote high levels of success, and should include productive struggle at a particular student's ability, and provide students the opportunity to demonstrate their learning for feedback. The closing of the lesson should be brief and interactive. Review, preview, and assign independent work. Involving students, monitoring their performance, and providing feedback is imperative for success throughout the lesson. It all feeds into the parts of the components of the lesson. In this video, the teacher shares a brief lesson that shows the use of explicit teaching strategies.
In this video, the teacher uses explicit systematic instruction. During the first step of explicit systematic instruction, the teacher readies the students for the lesson.
All right, boys and girls, today during math class, we are going to be adding one-digit numbers by drawing pictures. Now, in the past, we've used 10 frames to help us add. Show me a thumbs up if you remember using 10 frames to help you add. See lots of thumbs up out there, lots of you remember. We've also used counters before to help us add. Show me a thumbs up if you remember using counters. See lots more thumbs up too, lots of you remember. Well, today, we're going to be adding by drawing pictures. And we're going to do this because you aren't always going to have counters in your pockets or 10 frames in your backpacks to help you. So today I'm going to teach you how you can draw a picture that's going to help you add two numbers together.
During the next step, the teacher leads the students through several problems, modeling the procedures.
We're going to start with this problem here, 2 plus 4. To start, I'm going to draw dots to show my first number 2. 1, 2. Dominique, how many dots did I draw?
2.
That's right, I drew 2 dots. Next, I need to draw 4 dots. Mateo, how many dots do I need to draw next?
4.
That's right, I need to draw 4 dots. I'm going to come over here and draw 4 dots. Now I want to make sure that my picture matches the problem. So I'm going to count and make sure I have 1, 2, and then here I have 1, 2. You know, those dots are kind of messy. If I'm going to be drawing a picture, I need my dots to be nice and neat. So I'm going to draw my dots down below. 2, 3, 4. Now I've drawn 4 dots. My last step is to count all the dots to see how many dots I have altogether. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dots. Carlos, how many dots do I have?
6.
That's right, I have 6 dots. So I know that 2 plus 4 equals 6. Now something I want you to remember. When you're adding, sometimes you may know the answer right away, and that's awesome. Other times you may not know the answer right away. And that is one example of a time when you may want to draw a picture to help you add.
After the teacher leads students through several problems, she then implements teacher-guided practice.
Now, I'm going to have you do the next 3 problems with a partner. I'm going to walk around the class, I'm going to answer any questions or help you as needed.
After the teacher has monitored the students during teacher-guided practice and provided corrective feedback, she asks students to complete problems independently. To ensure maintenance, the teacher plans for opportunities for ongoing practice and provides instruction for students who have not mastered the concept or procedure.
The teacher demonstrated step-by-step how to use a picture to assist in adding one-digit numbers. You may have noticed her think aloud process when counting the dots and modifying her picture to better align her dots to ensure her addition is correct. There are many elements of explicit teaching strategies, as mentioned in the definition we gave earlier in the presentation, and also in the outline flow chart just presented. Some elements are focusing on critical content, sequencing skills in a logical order, breaking complex concepts and skills down into smaller units, keeping lessons focused and organized, beginning lessons with communicating clearly, clear lesson intentions and success criteria, and revisiting those throughout the lesson. Reviewing prior skills and knowledge, providing step-by-step demonstrations, part of the I do portion of the lesson, and using clear and concise language. We'll be looking at the providing step-by-step demonstrations more in just a moment. More elements of the explicit teaching strategies include providing an adequate range of examples and non-examples, which we will be looking at in a moment, providing guided and supported practice, part of the we do portion of the lesson, requiring frequent responses, checking for student understanding, providing immediate feedback, pacing the lesson appropriately, help students organize knowledge, and providing distributed and cumulative practice, part of the you do portion of the lesson.
To expand on the strategy, provide step-by-step demonstrations. Modeling is a powerful tool. Being clear and concise, including several demonstrations depending on complexity and involving students are all key to a successful model. Using a think aloud process where you as the teacher share your thinking and you allow your students to share their thinking out loud is essential in moving student learning forward. Helping students by verbalizing your thoughts, including the decisions that you are making in solving a problem and the reasons behind those decisions is very powerful. Also, embracing mistakes or missteps as opportunities to learn and grow is critical as well. This example provides a step-by-step demonstration for virtual instruction. The teacher completed the demonstration using Google Slides and recorded using Screencastify.
I'm going to go ahead and show you the step-by-step explicit teaching strategy with a little bit of thinking aloud using math. We are going to pretend that we are teaching this lesson virtually. So I have the number 34 plus 45 equals blank. The first thing I'm going to do is write my problem vertically. So now I have 34 plus 45 vertically. I made sure to align my numbers so that way it's nice and neat and I don't get confused with my place values. So I'm going to go ahead and start building my numbers using my base 10 units. I always start in the ones column or the ones place. So in the number 34, I'm going to start with the 4. I'm going to build the 4 because that's in the ones place. So I'm going to grab my ones unit and I'm going to move 4 over 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm going to go ahead and build my 5 in the ones place in the number 45. So I'm going to grab 5 ones units. 1, 2, 3, oops. I just made that little. Let me go back. 4 and 5. All right, I'm not finished building my numbers because now I have to move to the tens place. So in the number 34, I have the 3 in the tens place. I'm going to grab 3 tens rods. 1, 2, 3. And again, I'm not finished because I have a 4 in the tens place in the number 45. So I'm going to grab 4 tens rods. 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, so now in order to add all of these up using my base 10 units, I'm going to go ahead and start counting them. I'm going to go ahead and start in my ones place, and I'm going to count all of my ones units. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now I counted those each individually, one by one. I can also think about the tens frame. That's why I lined them up nice and neat, and so that way it's built like a tens frame, right? So then I can look automatically and say, oh, there's one missing, so that's 9. So I didn't have to count them right away. Or I can even count on. So I know I already built 4, so now I'm going to count on 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I have 9 ones. I'm now going to move over to the tens place. And I have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. So I have 70 over here, right? Or I have 7 tens rods. So I'm going to put the number 7. And I'm putting it in the tens place because there's the value of 7 tens rods is 70. So that's why I put the 7 in the tens place. So now I have 79 as my answer.
The teacher showed her thought process when noticing how the 9 ones units compared to a tens frame and how to count on. This video could then be linked in the teacher's Google Classroom for students to view. She could also teach it during a Google Meet and provide opportunities for guided practice and independent practice. There are many other ways to use interactive Google Slides and Screencastify to provide step-by-step demonstrations. Now we will look at the explicit teaching strategy, provide an adequate range of examples and non-examples. Some key things to remember are, use both examples and non-examples, not only for vocabulary terms, but also when teaching skills, strategies, concepts, and rules. When possible, use concrete visual and verbal examples. Progress from simple to difficult. Provide several examples in rapid succession or at the same time so that students can make connections and generalizations in their working memory. For example, when explaining quadrilaterals, show several instances at the same time, such as a square, rectangle, parallelogram, trapezoid, diamond, etc. And students can then make generalizations and commit attributes to memory. Try to match examples with non-examples for clarity. Give the students opportunities to come up with their own examples and non-examples, and consider, in some situations, providing several examples and non-examples and allowing the students to discover the concept you are teaching. What are some ways that we can engage students to provide a wide range of examples and non-examples and ensure student understanding? Well, we don't have time to fully explore or model all of the ways that we have listed here on this slide. You can click on the underlined word or words to find more information on each one of those. So for in-person instruction, you can use response cards, and you can even have the students make those with an E and an N or a yes and a no. You can use a Kagan structure called Show Me, where the teacher asks a question, provides think time, has students write their answer on either a dry erase board or just a piece of paper. And then when she says show me, all students show their answer at the same time. This allows the teacher a chance to check for student understanding all at the same time. Another Kagan structure that allows students an opportunity to respond is called stand and share. You again allow students think time to come up with one example for a particular concept. Then all students stand up, you call on someone to share an example. That student sits down, and anyone else who came up with that same example would also sit down. Then continue that process, calling on a student and having all students sit down that had that answer until all students are seated. Another Kagan structure that could be used is think, write, round robin, where students are in groups. You allow think time for them to write a list of examples and non-examples, and then they take turns in order sharing their answers with their group and discussing them. You can also use graphic organizers such as a Freire model or semantic maps or concept maps to help students make connections using examples. For virtual instruction, you could create a Jamboard, which is like a digital whiteboard where students could use Post-it notes to include examples or non-examples. They could comment on each other's answers. You could use Pear Deck or Nearpod, which both allow for student participation during virtual instruction, and we're going to look at Nearpod in just a moment. And as students have access to a device when they're at school, you can incorporate Jamboard, Nearpod, Pear Deck for in-person instruction as well. There are some features in Google Meet called polls and question and answer, which allow your students to participate during like a live instruction, virtual instruction. These could both be used to check for student understanding. And some of the ways we already discussed for in-person instruction can also be used for virtual instruction, including Show Me, Stand and Share, Think, Write, Round Robin, if you used Google Meet's breakout rooms for that, graphic organizers, and semantic or concept maps. This slide shows some possible steps to use during vocabulary instruction. So to be explicit, you first want to introduce the word, then introduce its meaning, then illustrate by giving examples and provide a wide range of those. And in the fourth step, check for students' understanding of if they can distinguish between examples and non-examples and explain why. Some extensions might include having students come up with synonyms, antonyms, word associations, etc. At the bottom of the slide, there's links to some sample vocabulary lessons. For our example that we're going to look at, we're going to jump to steps 4. We're going to skip steps 1 through 3 and look at steps 4 to check for student understanding. And if you were teaching in person, you could do this using response cards or the Show Me strategy. And we're going to answer with yes or no. And the word we're going to look at is elude. And we would have already shared the definition of elude. If you avoid someone or escape from them, then you elude them. And these would be some examples you could share with your students or non-examples. So you would display these on the screen and have your students hold up their response card. And as you display them and give the answer, you could have them turn to a partner and discuss those in more depth. For example, for the first one, they could talk about why that's not an example of elude. Or maybe for this third one, talk about why they would walk in the forest and where would they not want to walk if they were trying to elude patrollers. So that would be a way that you could distinguish if students understand examples and non-examples by doing response cards or a Show Me strategy. For virtual teaching, Nearpod is one way to check for student understanding. It can be used as a Google slide add-on where you can create any of the following slides that would help with examples and non-examples. And we're going to look at a few of these in just a moment. So one option is a collaborate board, which is similar to similar to Jamboard, where students can provide answers and make comments to each other. The difference between the collaborate board and Nearpod and Jamboard is that the teacher can decide if a student's answer is going to be displayed on the board. They have a chance to censor that, to include it or not include it. There's also a poll option, a quiz option, a draw option, and an open-ended question option. And some of these, including the collaborate board, draw it, and open-ended question, would allow teachers to get at higher level thinking. And you can do Nearpod in a live instruction, or you can do a student-paced lesson where you could do it asynchronously and students respond on their own time. Apologize. Let's go to our Nearpod lesson to look at an example. So for this example, we're going to look at the rule for prime numbers. If the only divisors are 1 and the number itself, then the number is a prime number. And some ways you could check for student understanding using Nearpod would be you could ask in a poll. And for this particular poll, they could answer with more than one selection. They can choose more than one selection. So they would want to choose all the examples of a prime number here. That's the student view, and the teacher view would look like this, and you can choose to share this with your students. And as you can see who got the correct answers. And as you share it, you could use it as a point of discussion as to what's the correct answers, maybe what's not correct and why. Another option is to use Draw It. And for Draw It, you can put an image in the background. And in this particular one, we did a T-chart of prime numbers and not prime numbers. And the students can actually write directly on this slide, or they can type in a text box on this slide. So this is a student view. And here's a student view after they put answers on there. And then once they submit it, this is the teacher view, and you can see all the different students' answers on here. And if you want to share these, you have the option to hide the student name if you don't want everyone to see the student name. But if you click on a particular student, then you can see their answer and you can choose to share it. And when you share it, it'll show up on all the student screens if you're doing a live version. Another option is open-ended question. This is a student view. This is where you could get at maybe asking for an explanation. For this one, list 3 prime numbers and explain why they are prime numbers. And then as the student answers come in, this is the teacher view. And once again, you can choose to share those and you can hide the student names or include the student names. You can click on individuals and expand and see their entire answer and just share one of them that way. So that's a quick view of what you could use Nearpod to teach explicit teaching strategy of examples and non-examples. Culturally responsive considerations when using high-yield instructional practice explicit teaching strategies include communicating clear and specific expectations to students using collaborative-based learning approaches and modeling, as we showed you earlier, especially metacognitive and critical thinking. When considering the needs of ECE students, using the elements of explicit teaching strategies, including continuous monitoring through formative assessment, and adjusting instruction will help to maximize student understanding. For project-based learning, or PBL, or deeper learning, it is important to consider beginning the PBL cycle with an entry event that will activate prior knowledge and provide scaffolding when needed. To help students be critical thinkers and effective problem solvers, consider providing tools such as graphic organizers, sentence starters, and protocols. Thank you for joining us to learn more about explicit teaching strategies. For more information about the MTSS toolkits and other high-yield practices, visit our website.